In this video, we're going to talk about external struggles. But let's recap the first video that we talked about. The first video was about learning Spanish in general and realizing that you're still not fluent. You're still having to search for another way to speak Spanish, another way to learn Spanish fluently, I should say, because nothing's working for you. Everything you try seems to be a dead end where you know some stuff, but you still can't get to that fluid point that you want to get to. Embarrassment, feeling confused, not knowing enough information, not knowing enough words. All these things were keeping you back from speaking Spanish because there's too many internal struggles going on there. So we're going to talk about some external struggles now that are kind of keeping you from fluency. One of them is time. It takes time to learn another language. And everybody works, everybody or goes to school. They have other things to do in their life. So it's hard to find time. Money is the other thing. So how does it cost money to learn Spanish? Money is you buying course after course after course and still not getting fluent in Spanish and trying to find that program that works. Going to a college class. You go to a college class and it costs, $200 or $300 to take a college class, and that's for each level. So if you want to go to the beginning, it's a few $100s. You want to go to advanced level, it's another few $100s. In addition to that, you're buying books or you're trying to supplement that with other material, and it adds up. Finding the right program is really hard when you're learning Spanish because you don't know what's going to work. And what I found through all the programs I bought is they all focus on the same kind of thing. So I had this sudden realization. I realized that there's really only a couple of key points that is needed for learning Spanish. All the stuff they teach you, it's adding confusion. You will learn that. You will learn that, but there was only a few key points that were really required to learn Spanish. Once I realized that, I tested my theory in the class and I just started talking to her in Spanish, and something clicked, and I was ignoring the ways that I was taught and everything and doing it a different way. And she was shocked. It was like I went in there one day and I was all of a sudden having conversations and saying stuff. And now I wasn't fluent yet, but I was having conversations with her. I wasn't perfect at it, but it was really good. And it got to the point where she was using me as an example in class, not only because I was able to speak suddenly, but because my pronunciation was so good. I was certainly proud that I had accomplished something that I wasn't able to do before, and it really, really felt awesome. Once I did this, I didn't have to memorize phrases. It opened up a door for me, and I was actually able to make sentences, and they were smaller in the beginning, but they got bigger and easier. I would thought I'd never be able to speak Spanish because of all the thousands of words there are. So how do you learn thousands of words? How do you say there's so many words in a conversation? In one conversation, you say hundreds of words, right? How do you do that? You have to memorize vocabulary words. You have to. That's part of language, right? I figured out a way to remember words. And I literally remembered 2,000 words in 2 weeks. 2,000. And the method is just so easy. And I was so happy that I was able to do something like that. People don't teach you those kind of details. They just give you words, but they don't tell you how to memorize them. And there's a trick to it, and it makes it super easy to do. So my level of Spanish increased rapidly just because I was able to increase my vocabulary rapidly. Pronunciation was difficult in the beginning, and I realized something that made it easier for me. So once I realized that, how to do it, pronunciation was a lot easier for me. I was worried about all the grammar rules, and I was overwhelmed because of it, because everybody wants to teach you. All the apps want to teach you, the schools want to teach you. Everybody you talk to, they're talking about all the grammar, grammar, grammar. The problem is it's overwhelming and it's hard to remember all of it and it's boring and things like that. When I redirected my focus away from the grammar rules, it came naturally later. And it does, it really does. It comes naturally later without even trying to do it. So I realized a common sense approach to handling things you don't understand. So I was in a situation where somebody would say something to me in Spanish and I didn't understand what they said. So it would get me all flustered and I'd feel uncomfortable. I didn't know how to handle it. And then I'd just resort to speaking English again and trying to figure it out. And I figured out a way to handle situations from a common sense point of view. It just makes sense to handle it differently. So once I figured how to do that, that made that part of it easier for me. Once I put all this stuff together, I was actually fluent in Spanish, conversationally fluent in just a few months. And it really increased fast. I wasn't translating everything in my head. In the beginning, of course, you're translating all the time. You're every word you're hanging on to words when people are talking to you, and you're thinking in your head and you're translating those words. And I didn't have to do that anymore. I wasn't asking people to speak slow. I wasn't asking people to repeat things. That was a common thing. What'd you say? Can you say that again? Can you say it slower? After a while, you just hear it. It was like a light switch, literally. I was hearing the meaning of the sentence without translating every single word. So it was like they were speaking English to me, honestly. After a while, it felt like my own language. I was so into it because I was moving forward so quickly that I was having dreams in Spanish, full on conversations in my dreams. My accent improved so much that the Spanish speaking people or Mexicans that were around me when I was practicing with a friend would look at me and ask if I was from Mexico or I lived in Mexico or if I was married to a Mexican woman. They would always say, my accent's so good. How did you learn so well? The more I spoke, the more I connected the dots and it just became easier. Grammar started to make sense. So all those grammar rules that I ignored in the beginning, it started making sense. I started realizing how people were talking and how they said things, and I would copy them. I would do the same kind of things they would do, and I would notice when they said things in a certain way, they added certain words before it. I would do the same thing, and before you know it, I just knew that's when you added words in a certain order to say things a certain way. And that's how the grammar naturally falls into place without you having to think about it and practice it and learn it. So I got to the point where I was so good. You could literally tell me I'm never allowed to speak English again and drop me in the middle of Mexico or Venezuela or somewhere, and I would have no problem not speaking English ever again. I see so many people, and I talk to so many people that literally have had years of Spanish and they can't even make a sentence. And it's sad because I went through the same kind of thing. I see people struggling all the time, and it doesn't have to be that way. But I'm telling you, what I figured out works. And it's so simple, you're going to think, oh, that's it. But it worked for me. It made me fluent. So the current methods are broken. Apps give you good information, but not enough to say what you want when you want to say it. The focus more is on memorized phrases for different scenarios like restaurants or shopping or something like that. They are not worded like real life conversations either. They say things that people wouldn't talk like that in real life. And I've been around Spanish speaking people and they don't say things the way they teach you in those apps. So businesses that have online courses and things like that, promising that you will be fluent having a conversation in 30 days or 90 days with somebody. They charge $500 to $1,000 for these courses. And it'd be great if it was $500 to $1,000 and I could actually say what I want to say when I want to say it. But these courses are designed and focused on pre-memorized sentences and phrases and conversations. So they're going to say, okay, you're going to go to have a conversation with somebody, and I want you to write down everything you want to say in this conversation and the possible responses that you're going to get from this person and memorize it. So you have 30 to 90 days to remember a conversation. So that's pretty much what they're designed to do. The bigger programs, the apps out there, the courses out there for all these common ones, the big companies that have been around for decades, they have apps and they have courses and everything now, but there is so much information. They also have phrases for different scenarios and things, and they have too much detail and not enough real world application to get you fluent. High school classes, college classes, all kind of the same thing. They focus on grammar, they focus on spelling, and there's too much information again that's not directed toward getting you speaking. And that's what they're missing. You probably tried at least one of these courses or more of them, more of these methods, and you still can't communicate fluently. Do they really focus on getting you speaking? If it's a pre-memorized sentence, yeah, they try, go use this sentence with somebody. But the problem is, if you use a sentence for somebody and they answer you in a different way, if you pre-memorize the conversation and they answer you different than what you were expecting, all of a sudden you're lost. It didn't follow the method you learned. They didn't give you the response that the app taught you were going to get, or you thought they were going to give you. So you kind of get lost. You need a better way. And I have another option for you. And it's the option I used. It'll move you to fluency very fast, and it's way easier than you think. And we'll talk about that next.